Good evening. This is a Fox News Alert. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. There are only 4 or 5 U.S.-trained Syrian fighters on the ground fighting ISIS. Not 400 or 500, just 4 or 5 people. That's the word from the top general in charge of the U.S. effort. The administration's strategy to defeat ISIS is now under investigation after dozens of intelligence officers' complaints that the effort was not going anywhere near as well as the Obama administration would have everyone believe. The big admission came today in testimony on Capitol Hill, rattling lawmakers and putting the White House back on its heels. National security correspondent Jennifer Griffin has the story tonight from the Pentagon.
A damning admission by the head of U.S. Central Command about the state of a $500 million program Congress approved a year ago to train the Syrian opposition to, quote, degrade and destroy ISIS.
It's a small number, and the ones that are in the fight is we're talking four or five.
4 or 5 fighters out of the 54 that the U.S. military trained and inserted into Syria in July. The goal had been to train 5,400 in a year.
We certainly won't, at the pace we're going, we won't reach the goal that we had initially established for ourselves.
The White House admitted as much today.
The administration knew on the front end that this would be a quite difficult task, and it's proven to be even more difficult than we thought.
And yet, during a hearing on Capitol Hill today, the general overseeing the war against ISIS repeatedly suggested the strategy is working.
We continue to make progress across the battle space. And again, progress is being made.
To which Senator John McCain responded,
I've never seen a hearing that is as divorced from the reality of every outside expert and what you are saying.
General Austin wouldn't comment on the specifics of a Pentagon Inspector General investigation into complaints by CENTCOM intelligence analysts who said they've been pressured to cook the books on the U.S. campaign to defeat ISIS.
I will assure you that we will do everything within our power to ensure that the whistleblowers remain protected and there is no retaliation.
If we don't have reliable intelligence as policymakers, and if the president doesn't have reliable intelligence, we can't make good policy, and this keeps happening. I mean, this goes back to the Bay of Pigs, Vietnam, the Iraq War.
Meanwhile, U.S. officials say the Russians are setting up a forward operating base in Latakia, Syria. Today, 4 Russian helicopter gunships sat on the tarmac of Syria's Basel al-Assad airport. Russian Antonov military cargo flights continue arriving twice a day in Syria. Secretary of State John Kerry said his Russian counterpart offered in their 3rd phone conversation in a week to work together militarily in Syria. Kerry said he favors talking to the Russians. Even the Pentagon suggested today there may be a role for Russia to play.
They are just as concerned about foreign fighter flows from ISIL as we are.
Meanwhile, CENTCOM just put out a clarification saying General Austin misspoke during testimony today when he seemed to suggest U.S. troops have been on the ground in Syria. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you. More on this with the panel. Just 2 hours from now, 11 candidates hoping to be the next president take the stage for the second Republican debate. As we all know from the poll results following the Fox News primetime debate, it's anyone's game. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is at the site of tonight's debate with a look at what the candidates may need to do to stand out.
On the deck of the ISS Iowa, the frontrunner last night delivered what was billed as a national security speech ahead of tonight's debate. Without saying how, Donald Trump promised to put veterans in private hospitals when the VA's backlogged, a practice that's already underway.
The veterans are going to go to private doctors, private hospitals, public hospitals, and we're going to reimburse those doctors and those hospitals.
He made a startling comparison.
We have illegal immigrants that are treated better by far than our veterans. That's not going to happen anymore.
It's potentially a huge night for the only woman in the GOP race who successfully played Trump's insults against him and made it to the primetime debate stage.
It's a big opportunity, as I say, for me to introduce myself to the almost 50% of the nation and Republican primary voters who don't know my name and don't know I'm running for president.
Dr. Ben Carson's in a virtual tie with Trump nationally and now in New Hampshire and Iowa as well, and plans a steady-as-he-goes debate strategy.
I don't think that my strategy is going to change at all. The polls are not particularly surprising given the fact that I'm out there amongst the people a lot, and I've been seeing the level of enthusiasm and the size of the crowds for quite some time.
All three outsiders have continually gained momentum since the last debate, unlike the experienced politicians who've been stuck in single digits. Jeb Bush needs to show he has the brass to beat Trump. Scott Walker has to restore his relevance. Ted Cruz needs a breakout moment if he wants to win Trump's supporters. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who says he wants to give Trump both barrels, went to a shooting range and blasted the tax code today. Marco Rubio needs a charismatic moment to remind voters of his potential, and Ohio Governor John Kasich needs to accelerate the ascent he began in the first debate. Struggling for traction in the polls and on the trail, both Mike Huckabee and Chris Christie know their chances of catching on are dwindling. But that's true for all of the single-digit bunch. And organizers say the primetime debate may actually start a few minutes late, perhaps as many as 10 or 15 minutes late, but could go 2 hours and 45 minutes, perhaps even 3 hours. That means fatigue, irritation and frustration at perhaps not being called frequently enough, and even the need for a bathroom break could be such a distraction that any one of these candidates could end up having a rough night just because of the endurance test. Brett?
Carl Cameron live at the Reagan Library. Carl, thanks. We'll have all the analysis post-debate right here on Fox News Channel. Hillary Clinton's campaign is getting ready to counter tonight's GOP debate, but with Bernie Sanders' popularity on the rise and a continued push for Vice President Joe Biden to possibly jump into the race, some Democrats are wondering out loud if her campaign should be more worried about the competition within her own party. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry has that story from New York tonight.
Hillary Clinton was riding so high earlier this summer she held a low-profile event with nurses on the day Republicans first clashed at the Fox News debate and jokingly boasted about taking over the Oval Office.
You know, 2016 is coming, and it's somebody's going to be president. And we need somebody.
Today, that somebody was greeted with yet another brutal number. The New York Times CBS News poll revealing among registered voters, 32% find her honest and trustworthy, 62% do not. So instead of staying quiet again before this debate, Clinton taped an appearance on Jimmy Fallon's The Tonight Show and mocked Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and the rest of the GOP field in a new campaign video.
You're fired. 17 of the most extreme Republicans battled for attention.
Machine gun bacon.
Now the contestants are on a race to the far right.
On August 5th, the day before the Fox debate, Clinton was the runaway Democratic frontrunner, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls, with a 35-point lead over Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders, while Vice President Joe Biden was polling in just 13%. Today, that average shows Clinton has dropped 10 points to 45%. Sanders is up slightly from 20% to 23%, while Biden has increased his total to 19%. He's sounding like a candidate, charging Trump has been xenophobic.
It's about a sick message. This message has been tried on America many times before. We always overcome it.
As speculation swirls about whether President Obama would back a Biden run, he followed the vice president with an attack on Trump's motto, "Make America Great Again."
Despite the perennial doom and gloom that I guess is inevitably part of a presidential campaign, America's winning right now. America's great right now.
A growing number of Democrats are demanding Clinton agree to more debates, some saying it will actually make her a better candidate. Come tomorrow, the Republicans will have debated twice. Clinton's first one is not coming until mid-October. Brett?
Ed Henry live in New York. Ed, thank you. Up next, what a possible interest rate hike could mean for you. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 13 in Salt Lake City, where flash flooding killed at least 18 people along the Utah-Arizona border this week. The search is on for one hiker still missing in Zion National Park. Fox 2 in San Francisco with some good news, welcomed news in the fight against the Valley Fire. A light rain fell in the area today after burning nearly 72,000 acres in Northern California. That fire is nearly 50% contained. And this is a live look from Dallas. And our affiliate Fox 4, the big story there tonight. President Obama invites a 14-year-old Texas student to the White House after the Muslim boy was arrested for bringing a homemade clock to school. One of the student's teachers thought it looked like a bomb. Police were called in, and Ahmed Mohammed was taken out of school in handcuffs. Mohammed was suspended for 3 days, but no charges were filed. In extending the invitation to the White House, the president tweeted that, quote, "We should inspire more kids to like science." That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.